Welcome, everyone, to our April's virtual campus. We have two CEOs today from the Target Markets Program Administration Association, and we are super excited to learn a little bit more. We have some great context today on what program business is and what we do at TMPAA. So we're very excited. By the way, TMPAA has been a great supporter for us for the past couple of years. It's only growing, and we're so excited to get more and more talent into this section of insurance. So we're going to get started with small introductions. So we're going to start with Brian.
Thanks, Daniel. It's really a pleasure to be here. And nice to see you all. And it's wonderful to see the turnout this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are. My name's Brian Cohen. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Arden Insurance Services. I'll tell you my background because I think no one in insurance gets to insurance right away. At least that was when I started in the industry, because the industry was looked at as sort of a backwater, old, sleepy, and what a terrible mistake I made. I started as a lawyer. I was a lawyer in CPA. I was a corporate lawyer. Um, and I wanted to go on the business side. I wanted to become a business person, and no one would hire me. The only one that would hire me was an insurance company, and that's how I ended up in insurance. Thank God they hired me. The name of the company was Farmers Insurance. I spent almost 9 years there, and I did a whole bunch of things. I really learned the insurance business there. It was a wonderful organization. Really enjoyed it. I left Farmers to run a software company, an insurance software company. Why? Because I saw what was happening with technology. And for all of you, you're living in a time that I can't even imagine. The incredible opportunity in technology is, and what's happening in our world and how you can leverage that. I know it might seem a little daunting, but to me, sitting sort of at the tail end of my career, wow, what an exciting time that you're in. Um, I left. We grew the business. We sold it. I left, and then I became more entrepreneurial. And so my background is both big company and then trying to do something on my own. And I think you either have to be a little crazy or you have to be a big risk taker. But it's something I did, and I was lucky enough that through that I was able to do a bunch of different things, culminating in starting Arden back 10 years ago now. And Arden is a MGA or MGU, Managing General Underwriter. That's really our business. We underwrite risk. And we believe, and I think Rekha and I will both talk about it, we believe this um, thing called an MGA or a program administrator, this structure is a structure that uniquely captures the efficiencies and capabilities that larger organizations and traditional insurance companies just can't do as effectively and efficiently anymore. And that's why I'm so excited to talk to you today, to just give you a little idea of what the program administration space is like. So, married, two kids, 28 and 26, and I went to University of California, Berkeley, go Bears. As an undergrad, and I went to USC, not South Carolina, but I went to the one in LA for law school. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much. And we also have a twofer today with another CEO, Rekha Skantharaja. So, Rekha, please, if you'd like to give us a little intro as well.
Hi guys, Rekha, nice to meet you. And Daniel, thank you for inviting me to be here. I am an East Coast girl living in a West Coast world. So I was born in Brooklyn, New York, to immigrant parents. I thought I would be a doctor because every good South Asian girl is supposed to grow up to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And I deviated far from the path. I think my parents have finally come to grips with the fact that there are many paths to success, and this is one of them. I graduated from Boston University and I decided I wanted a great big adventure out west. And so I bought a one-way ticket and I came out here. And the first job that called me back was for an assistant position at a small insurance brokerage firm in San Francisco, but it was doing insurance that I had never heard of before. It was something called directors and officers insurance. And I had heard about homeowners and renters and auto insurance, of course, having a car, had never heard of this thing called, for shorthand, D&O. But what was interesting and exciting about it is D&O basically insures boards of companies and the executives and the officers that work in those companies. So because of that, the clients that I was supporting were these very high-powered executives that I would have access to that normally someone at 21 or 22 would never get to talk to. And at the time, it was 2001, so I'm dating myself here. And um, there were these little companies called Amazon and Netflix and Pixar 20 something years ago that were just getting started. So I would be in the room with Jeff Bezos and the general counsel because I was placing insurance for him, or the executives at Netflix, or some of the big Silicon Valley SaaS companies. And so that's how I got my foot in the door. I made $38,000 a year. It was my first job. I could barely pay my rent, but God, was I excited to be in San Francisco in a tiny little studio apartment in the Tenderloin, which, um, made my parents' skin crawl living there because it was definitely a melting pot of socioeconomic, right? People in the population. But I just thought it was so exciting, kind of being able to support myself and be in insurance. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I would say I got in and I quickly started moving around the industry. So I spent a few years as an insurance broker, got my license, and then I moved to the insurance company side because I wanted to not just be an intermediary. I wanted to learn about actually taking the risk and what that side of the business means in our ecosystem. And then I finally came here to a company called Balavant, which I founded in September of 2025. I ended up at another MGA and raising some money to, without getting all the technicalities, spin that company out and form a new company. But like Brian, I run a managing general agency or a program business administrator. And I find it to be the most entrepreneurial, exciting place to be in my career. I'm happy that I got to spend some years in brokerage and on the insurance company side. And this feels like the perfect marriage of those things. So if I could have started here, I would have. And that's why I think it's really exciting we get to talk to you, because that's the thing that I would go back and tell my younger self.
Yeah, we need a virtual campus on how you survive on $38,000 a year in San Francisco. But anyway, that's another virtual campus. So,
I survived on 17,000 a year in San Francisco. That was my first job out of college, but that
wow.
was a long time ago.
Love it, love it. Well, program business, many of the students online today, and also that will be watching on YouTube later on, maybe this is the first time they've ever heard of program business. So for students that are hearing this term for the first time, how would you explain program business and why has it become such an important part of the insurance industry?
I think the best way to understand program business is um, it's specialty business. So there's a number of key things in insurance that you have to be good at. And one of the most important is the ability to underwrite and understand the risk. And so what program business is typically these are smaller entities that are finding a specialty niche in the insurance market. So, although there are program administrators in auto insurance and homeowners insurance, where the business really started was finding little niches. Rekha mentioned D&O, for example. But even within D&O, there's niches within D&O. There's public D&O, there's private D&O. And what typically a program administrator brings to a specific market or type of risk is a specialization or a focus on a particular part of a larger risk. So let's say in my case, we at Arden, all we do is insure residential condominium associations. That falls under the umbrella of commercial property. And that's huge. That can be anything from an industrial building to an apartment building, um, to something that's a factory. But all we do are residential condominium associations. So it's the specialization and the focus and discipline. Program administrators tend to be much smaller than insurance companies, for example, but they do a lot of the same things that insurance companies do. I leave it there. I'm sure I missed something, and Rekha, I'm sure you probably have a different perspective as well.
I think the only thing I would add is we use this term MGA, which is managing general agency, and we use program business interchangeably with MGA. So I just I think we as an industry don't do ourselves any favors with all the kind of nomenclature and acronyms and things that we do to make ourselves feel smarter than everyone else, and it just is just confusing. So program business, exactly what Brian said. It's usually like a homogenous book of business in a specific sector. It could be a line of business like he's talking about. It could be a book of property business in a specific sector, or it could be writing contractors, trade contractors, electricians, plumbers, HVAC guys, or you could be writing doctors groups or veterinarians in the healthcare space, or you could be insuring media companies. So generally, the aggregation comes from being deeply involved in a homogenous specific sector. That's what we would define, generally speaking, as a program. There are shades of that, but that's generally what we say. And an MGA is really an intermediary. So you might hear about insurance brokers. Insurance brokers usually represent clients or companies that are looking for insurance. And unlike you going out and getting a home or auto quote, which is a much more simple process, why these companies go to brokers is it can be lots of lines of coverage, definitely more complexity involved in their business operations. So they need, just like you might want a financial broker to manage your investment portfolio, you likely want, the bigger the company is and the more the insurance needs are, right? They need to insure their workers and they have healthcare and they have maybe they own their building, so they have property. They're going to want an insurance broker to help them out. We, as an MGA, work with insurance brokers, so they help us distribute our programs, and we work with the insurance companies to what we call have the pen. So they give us authority. They essentially rent out if you think about a pad of stationery paper, they essentially rent out their pad of stationery paper and they allow us to write on that stationery pad. They generally, there are again gradations of this, they generally take all of the risk and they trust us to write on that stationery pad of paper, to write those policies on their behalf. They trust Brian because they say Brian knows the residential condo market better than anybody else out there, better than our internal staff. And it would cost us a lot of time and money and resource to try to build that expertise underneath AIG or Chubb or Hartford or whatever the insurance company is. I'm just naming ones that some of you might have heard of. So they go to Brian and they rent out the expertise and they say, we're going to give you capacity or paper to write policies. Same thing. We do programs in the energy space or in the healthcare space or in the equipment dealer space. And they trust us because we know those specific things really well. And as an MGA, we are entrusted by the insurance company to then issue policies through the broker to those end companies. We are generally a fee-based business. We get paid a commission, just like an insurance company does, but we don't generally take a lot or any of the risk. So it's really important as an MGA that you build relationship and trust because you sit right in the middle, in the center of distribution, as well as what we call capacity, which is coming from, we need the insurance companies to trust us to, for them to believe that they will take the risk that we are having them assume. So I just wanted to slow us down and make sure that definitionally everybody was on the same page.
Lovely. No, it was perfect. And that's exactly what will be very resonant with the students, right? They'll be able to understand and digest it greatly. Thank you so much, both of you. So program business has grown a lot, right? So let's talk a little bit about the market growth. What factors are driving the growth and why are carriers increasingly interested in programs from your perspective?
Ladies first this time, Rekha.
Thank you. So I was like scribbling my notes, and it's funny when you get asked these questions, you're forced to like really think about what you're doing rather than if you've been doing this as long as Brian and I have, which is decades, you just become habitual and you sometimes, don't stop to think like, oh yeah, why am I here? And why is this really important? So thank you for the questions, Daniel. This has been great. I think carriers, right? So we're talking about big insurance companies, small insurance companies, medium-sized insurance companies are realizing that they deliver insurance solutions more generally, and they can't be experts in every niche. And so I think that's where MGAs come in and we fill the gaps. It's like having carriers being your general practitioner, right? And we're kind of like the cardiac surgeons or the neurosurgeons, I like to think. Like we are the specialists that go in a more surgical way rather than a blunt instrument. And you need both. You need the GP and you need the specialist. And I think we're the specialists. I think it's booming because, as Brian alluded to, there has never been more of an intersection between data and technology. And that allows for much more precise underwriting. And MGAs are so well positioned to take advantage of data and technology. We don't have as big of infrastructures, and a lot of these companies are public. Most of our companies are privately held. We can move without the spotlight of investors and the public. And I think there's a lot of access to capital. Insurance wasn't cool maybe a long time ago, but it is one of the oldest industries on the planet, the largest industries on the planet, and therefore it is ripe for disruption. The market is tremendous. It is essential, right? Think about it. Boats don't float and planes don't fly unless there's insurance. Period. End of story. And nothing in this country works without insurance. So I think, there's a lot of money that is now focused coming in, trying to disrupt, in a good way, trying to make the models of delivery more efficient. And so I think in a nutshell, like there is so much booming, especially in the MGA/program business space, because it is focused, it is fast, and it is specialized. And I think there's a lot of attention, right, on anything that can move at that speed and generate, I would say, the margins that we generate. Program business is very profitable if done the right way.
Just to pick up on what Rekha said, I think for all of you, the difference between the job world that you're going to enter into and the job world that I entered into was my job world, my job environment was very structured. It was very like you didn't have a lot of choices of where you started. There were big employers that would hire you, and everyone knew they had to go and work at certain kinds of for certain kinds of positions at certain big companies. And there was a real structure to how your whole career worked. And the reason why big companies were so powerful, and there were so many of them when I started in my career, was because you needed a lot of people to get things done. And the cost of technology was really, really expensive. I remember I was at Farmers Insurance, and we were going to redo our claims technology system, and it was going to cost over $100 million. How many companies have that kind of money? I mean, it's just a huge amount of money and capital that's needed. And so you had to be big when I went into the job market. And then over really the last 30 plus years, we've lived through numerous major technology changes. And I think the biggest one that had the biggest impact in the insurance space was the cost of technology dropping so much. So I always look at my iPhone and I think about how powerful the technology in my iPhone is. And it was more powerful than the first laptop that I ever had. Way more powerful, has way more memory, has way more responsiveness, can do way more things than my first laptop. And so, what's driven, I think, the growth of the program business is the ability to be able to use technology, which is super cheap, to build an enterprise or a company or an organization with a lot less people that's way more efficient than what the business that preceded it has been built on, a foundation of a much bigger, these huge companies. And I think for all of you that are now probably asking yourself, well, what's AI going to do with everything? First of all, I don't know how it's all going to play out, but this is how I'm thinking about looking forward. Today, when I think about market growth and opportunities, I think of the power of a small group, a small team, and what they can do with the technology that's available today. And they don't even have to know a lot about everything in a specific space like insurance. But if they're able to see a problem, a small group of people can attack that problem quickly and efficiently. And that is what I think has led to the growth of the program administration business. It's the ability to find and do things that in a prior generation, in a prior world, required a big, huge organization. And now you can do it way more efficiently. You could pivot way more efficiently. You could identify opportunities way more efficiently. And the technology revolution, this next wave that we're just starting to go through, will present even more problems. And for all of you that are graduating, you want to enter a world filled with disruption. You do not want to enter a world where there's only 2 or 3 companies that you can go to work for because that's the only way you're going to get a job in that industry. You want to go and find opportunity in an environment like this. So I know it can seem daunting with all the change that's going on. But what I would say to you is the reason you're seeing market growth in MGAs is it's a different model. It's a more efficient model, and it's a model that's able to do things better than ever before. And what I would be asking yourself is, um, where can I play if you're interested in insurance in that space to be able to take advantage of these tailwinds of technology and learning and how it's changing the way organizations work?
Thank you, Brian. So Rekha, you're CEO. So can you tell us a little bit about, now that you're leading, well, you're leading a company and in this space, program space. So what opportunities do you see for innovation in program business today?
Program business equals innovation. Like I absolutely believe just existing in the place that we're in, we are kind of at the epicenter of innovation. We are moving more creatively, more quickly, more effectively than our brokers and then our carriers. And I think that presents an enormous opportunity. And there's probably a few ways that we're innovating more than anyone else. I still think a lot of us, and Brian, I don't know if you would agree on the MGA side, aren't where we want to be. A lot of MGAs are still focused on efficiency, like so many industries, whether it's finance or it's consumer facing businesses, food industry. We're always trying to enhance margins and optimize the customer experience and make the back office more efficient. Whether you're in education, right, at a university, I mean, efficiency is the name of the game. Um, but I think once we can kind of get through the low hanging fruit of automation and efficiency and margin expansion, the real stuff is leveraging data to make real time underwriting decisions. Underwriting decisions means if you walked into my office today, we have a group of underwriters. We essentially look like a branch underwriting office for an insurance company, right? That's what we are. We're paid commissions by these insurance companies to look, feel, act, take on a lot of their attributes and be good stewards of their capital and their ability to take risk. And, I think a lot of our folks are trying to, if they see 1,000 renewable energy companies, they're trying to pick the mediocre to the best and right price premium. And the more tools they have, the more data, the more insights that grow into business intelligence, they're going to be able to have more information to make better judgment. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to better use the data to make real-time underwriting decisions. That's where the innovation opportunity sits. I think modern technology stacks, like Brian said, when we started, there were big companies with big legacy technology. They either were building it themselves or they were spending tens of millions of dollars to configure these systems, whether it was from IBM at the time or whoever else. And we're moving away on the MGA side from these big legacy tech stacks. We're kind of moving to this integrated platform model where we're out there and we're picking the best applications and we're asking our CIOs to build integrations. And I think what that means, really all that gobbledygook means, is we can just move a little faster at modernizing and adapting as ChatGPT gets better or Claude or all these things. We can just take those different modular, like, we have a modular approach. So we can take those different applications and plug them into our stacks and soup them up. And that's a really cool place to be. We're launching programs like, say, one of you as a student had an idea, like, you know what, we should be doing, this is already done, but I'll just put it out there. We should be doing insurance for drones. Drones now present a huge liability, right? We're personally flying drones. The military is flying drones. There's commercial and residential use for drones. And nobody is really talking about the risk. Like, what if that hits a kid in a park or it knocks someone's roof tile off or whatever? What's the injury, either bodily or property damage? And so there's a white space there, right, to insure. And obviously there have been drones out there for a while, so programs have now moved into that space.
Brian, you're a CEO and also president of TMPAA. So can you tell us what trends we're seeing in program business that students that are entering the industry might be interested in and definitely should be aware of?
I think the trends we're seeing are the ones we've been seeing for the last several years, and a continuing growth of program administrators being formed and existing program administrators growing bigger and looking for folks to help them continue their growth. I think this is a model that's here for the long term, and I think this is a model that's only going to continue to grow. I like to describe it like this. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the big mutual fund companies, Vanguard, let's say, right? And what are they? They're a portfolio manager, right? They take people's money and they manage their money for them, right? And what's an insurance company? An insurance company says, we're going to assume the risk. So if something bad happens to you, we're going to pay you for the result of that bad thing happening. They're assuming the risk. What I see happening in the industry right now is the way insurance companies regard themselves is they're risk takers or portfolio managers of risk. And in the past, they've also had to do all the work required to be able to manage that risk, right? Underwrite it, deal with the claim side, the operational side, everything. I think where the industry is going is an insurance company of today is slowly becoming a portfolio manager. It has a big balance sheet of cash and investments, and they want to deploy those. And they're starting to ask themselves, what's the best way to deploy it? And the best way that they're seeing, especially with program managers and program administrators, is by allocating part of their portfolio to those MGAs. And that's only growing. We're seeing right now carriers that have never dealt with program administrators setting up departments to just deal with program administrators. So I'm very bullish on the growth. And even though I've been involved with in the MGA space for a while, I feel like this is just the beginning. If this was a baseball game, we're in the third inning. We're not in the eighth inning, right? So that's how I would describe where we are, Daniel.
Thank you both. So now we're going to shift to career pathways for students. So now these students are learning that this is where innovation meets insurance. And hopefully a lot of them are now interested in the career opportunities, definitely the ones attending the mid-year in Dallas. And we look forward to seeing many of you there. And if not, we will for sure see you in October. But many students associate insurance careers with underwriting, claims, any other, types of roles that maybe students don't realize exist, specifically to program business or anything else. Rekha, do you want to try to take this one?
Sure, yeah. Yes, I think there is so much more beyond being an underwriter or being a claims person, although those are great places to start to kind of get the lay of the land. And we certainly need people wanting to do those jobs because they are, the heartbeat of we got to handle claims because it's inevitable. Losses are going to happen. That is the job of insurance, to be there when the inevitable loss happens. Hopefully not to everybody at the same time, right? Because then insurance doesn't work. And then underwriting, we need people that over time can continue to take in the data, take in the information, and make good decisions, sound decisions around risk selection. But apart from that, on the MGA side, there are jobs in overall portfolio or program management. There are jobs on the actuarial side. If you've ever heard about an actuary and you love math or data science, that's a great place to be. Business development. I spent a lot of my career in sales. How do you build really good systems of distribution, either direct to the consumer or through brokers? How do you want to sell your product, right? Essentially, and coming up with strategies around that, scripts around that, execution around that. Product development. If you are someone that likes thinking about the white space and being creative and looking at contracts and writing language. I suspect Brian, even though he didn't end up, doing product development because of his background as a lawyer. I mean, that's what essentially insurance is. It is a contract between the insurance company and the consumer or the policyholder to pay in certain circumstances. And understanding how to read that contract and what it says is really a valuable skill. Now, things like ChatGPT, Claude can help, but there is always going to be a relational aspect to bridging what the contract says and what it means, right, for the consumer or for the stakeholders, and doing that in a human way. And the more that you can understand that, I think the more useful you're going to be. I think there's going to be huge roles in technology. We are going to be like overly, I wouldn't say dependent, but collaborative, right, with technology. And if you want to build the tech to support the industry, I think there's going to be lots of places to develop really cool applications, process design, right? Workflows and process design that are integrating the technology. So I will leave you with this. More than ever before, than even when Brian and I started in the industry, it is so apparent that MGA's program business is a place where you can touch, as a young person, an older person, wherever you are in your lifespan, coming out into this career, you can touch strategy, you can touch education, you can touch innovation early in your career. It's one of the few industries where pedigree, or throw that out the window. Having a college degree, important. It says something about you. It says you can start and you can finish something. But rarely do we care whether you went to Yale or whether you went to a community college. It is about showing that you have moxie, right? You have drive, you have stamina, you have interest, you have curiosity, and you will get in rooms and you will be in places that you will not be, right? Had you started in investment banking, or had you started in some other industry that feels sexy, but you're doing the equivalent of like entry level grunt work, versus I think in insurance, you can get on that escalator quite quickly.
Thank you so much. So, Brian, next question is for you. And by the way, students, please get ready for your questions. We do have a question competition still going in place. Last month, we were able to give that gift card away to a student. Amisha is sitting on ready to the best question. By the way, for Rekha and Brian, we always give a gift card to the best question. And so at 1:45, we will get to your question. So you have 7 minutes to come up with the best question for today's chat. But Brian, still in this theme, what do you think, what kind of skills should students be looking at that will make them stand out either in their resume or internship experiences or anything that might make them stand out in program business specifically?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I think, and hopefully it'll be a little surprising. The first and most important thing, what we look for, is critical thinking. Believe it or not, when we get resumes of young folks, and I look at all the resumes, I'm the co-founder of the company, and we're still relatively small, and I like to interview everyone that comes through the door, even our interns. Critical thinking's really, really important. So I don't care what your major is. I care what you did in your major. And so I will ask people questions about what classes they took. Communication, critical. It's not just your ability to speak and express yourself orally, it's your ability to write. In fact, I would argue with AI and the importance of prompting, your ability to write and express yourself and express what you're trying to, um, elucidate to somebody is really, really important. Math, you have to be able to think critically on the mathematical side. And again, it doesn't sound like it sounds like I'm saying, I'm looking at your, elementary school, like, classes or whatnot. But you would be surprised at how many people that potentially, and I struggled with math through school. And so as soon as they get out, they go, I'm done. I don't have to worry about math anymore. No, every role that you're in, math plays an important part of it. In insurance, it's critical, right? Um, and then the last thing we look for, it's not a skill, but it's something I think you need to have, and that is curiosity. I think, in fact, I would put curiosity as number one, and everything else falls from there. And what I mean by curiosity is, why are we always doing it the way we're doing it? Or that's interesting. I'd like to learn more. An interest level in all things. And I'm always interested in insurance. My curiosity is about, like, why do we have this provision in this insurance policy? We've had it for decades, but why is it there? Everybody has it. Why? It's always asking why, being curious. What's happening in the marketplace that I need to be aware of, right? Um, it's a simple thing. Do you like to try new restaurants, or do you like to go to the same restaurant? I'm partial to people that like to try new restaurants because they're curious, they're willing to take a risk, right? Those are the things that we look for.
Daniel, I'm going to jump in too. I totally agree with what Brian's saying. I think on the MGA side, like, Brian and I are doing what we're doing because we have more of an entrepreneurial mindset. And you have to ask yourself, is that you? That's not everybody. I think, there are a lot of places in bigger insurance companies, bigger insurance brokerage firms where you could do quite well in a much more structured environment where you're, kind of just taking your steps up the staircase. I think it's a much more nimble, agile approach if you come to the program business side. It is the difference between being on a cruise ship and being on a sailboat. And let me tell you, it could be fun when you're on the sailboat, when the wind is at your back and you're just flying, or it could be terrifying when you're tipped over this way and you're feeling the wind and the water in your face and you're like, oh boy, I'm taking on water, I'm taking on wind. And you have to like all of that, right? And I think Brian and I would say we enjoy the turbulence, and we kind of live for that, right? We live for that, and not everyone is built for that. So if you kind of want, I think, try these things early on in your career and you will figure out what you're built for. And then the other thing I will say that Brian touched on, I agree. I was an English major when I started. I moved to international relations, so I graduated with a liberal arts degree, and I have written all my life. And I do think writing is becoming trickier because you guys have so many better tools than we have. We didn't have Grammarly, we didn't have ChatGPT, we had nothing. Um, God, I sound like an old person, like back in my day. But I think what's so interesting to me is I have employees walk into my office and I can tell when their emails are coming out of some AI app because they've never written like that before. I have never heard them use polysyllabic vocabulary words in my life. So I'm like, do you even understand what this gobbledygook means? And the chasm between written and spoken becomes so wide when they walk into my office and they use their verbal skills to unpack a problem, to critically think through something. So I would put layered at the top of that pile, I would say, we teach people how to use AI. We do not teach people how to speak. If you can clearly articulate points of view in simple and clarified ways, that will put you at the top of the pile. Do anything you can to figure that out. Read books, listen to your favorite podcasts, take in content from luminaries that are able to distill complex things into simple, in simple ways. That will set you apart. And the curiosity question, always realize you don't give up your power in an interview. you are interviewing that company as much as they are interviewing you. Okay. Always remember that. You have every right to sit in front of me and say, what's the last hard problem you solved? Why are you sitting in this seat and not someone else? What makes you special? Right? Um, what's the last hard conversation you have? What did you fail at in the last year? Ask those questions. That tells me you've got that moxie, you've got that charisma, you've got that boldness. And to Brian's point, you've got that curiosity. And that will set you apart. That will make me remember you.
Love it. And my last question was on advice, but I think you both have handled that. So we're moving on. So I'm going to give the students an opportunity and professors. I see some professors in the audience as well. Opportunity to ask, the questions to CEOs. So go ahead. You have your hand up.
It's so nice to meet all of you. I wanted to ask, when you think about the next generation entering insurance, what do you believe they're underestimating about the industry, and what will actually matter for success over the next decade?
How about I take the first part of that question and then you can talk
Okay.
about what you see for the next 10 years or so looking forward.
Sure.
So I think, Soha, that what people underestimate is what a tremendous life you can have in this industry. When I graduated school in Boston, I grew up 30 minutes from Manhattan, went to school in Boston. Everybody was working in what I would call at the time prestigious careers, right? They wanted to be like Brian, a lawyer. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I had a lot of friends go to Wall Street and work in investment banking. And insurance didn't have the same prestige. But guess what? 25 years later, I have ended up with a few houses, right? The ability to support myself, to never have to depend on anyone else. I've gone through divorce. I've been a single mom, and I have been able to support myself and make decisions for my life because this career has given me financial stability. And even beyond the money, I found a lot of joy in leading other people and coaching them through things and myself personally and professionally growing. I didn't go to business school, I didn't go to law school, but guess what? I also didn't have all that debt. So I've stayed the course for decades in an industry that has given me so much more than I could have ever imagined. And I'm so grateful for it. So grateful for it.
I would say looking forward, there are going to be more and more risks that nobody has ever thought of that are going to need insurance solutions. Rekha touched on a couple of, like, even the drone insurance issue, right? Who would have thought that you would need drone insurance like even 5 or 6 years ago, right? So what I'm seeing as I look out is the world is getting more complicated. That's great if you're in insurance because it means the world's going to need more insurance solutions. And so what I love about the industry is as the economy grows, insurance grows with the economy, and as disruption occurs, the need for insurance only grows. And so I think it's just, again, it's the golden age right now, and it's only going to get better.
I was wondering, how do you balance your underwriting expertise with the unique risk tolerance of insurers when you're choosing which policies to underwrite?
How do we, so what you, are you asking, how do we both sort of build an organization so that our underwriting does what we want it to do, which is to write the good risks and not write the bad, which of course is an impossibility. You're going to write a little bit of both. And if you're good, you're going to write a little more of the good than the bad. Yeah. So listen, I think this is why this is such an exciting time. Again, I'm going to date myself. When I started in insurance and you wanted to get car insurance, you had to drive to the agent's office and the agent would take a Polaroid picture of your car and you'd fill out a form and they'd send it in and they would tell you you're bound, you have insurance, but we're not going to be able to tell you the price for your insurance right away. We're going to have to wait a while, right? And usually took them a week to 10 days before you got the price back and it came in a letter, right? That's how it was. Today, we're making underwriting decisions. We're upset if it's taking us 20 to 30 minutes to make a very complicated underwriting decision that might require 150 different data points that are analyzed. And we're trying to focus on how can we do that in 5 or 10. And then more fundamentally, how can we do it in a way where the individual underwriter is going to be able to take that last step and craft a proposal to an insured that gives them the best option and gives us the best chance of writing a good risk. So it requires a tremendous amount of data analysis, but it also requires a tremendous amount of creativity on the part of an underwriter. So what I would say is the underwriter role is changing, and it's moving from a paper pusher and somebody that's able to pull stuff down, write stuff down and everything. And, I'll put it together and say, okay, now I'm going to go to a black box and it's going to tell me how much to charge. To now someone's got to holistically look at the risk and go, okay, what are my boundaries here? What can I do? And then they've got to communicate that. So just a lot of different attributes and skills today when you're underwriting versus what it was just a few years ago.
All right. So I just wanted to start off by saying thank you, Daniel, for working with us to get us out to Dallas for this meeting. It's a great opportunity. I do appreciate it. My question is, what leadership skills do you believe that have become more important for insurance executives now than it was or could have been 10 years ago?
Your turn, Rekha.
Well, I mean, I'm not the first to say this, but I can't agree with it enough. I think the human aspect is becoming much more important than it ever was before. The machines are able to do so many things that the humans were tasked with doing, right? And you're even seeing that as students and how that's affecting how you show up in the classroom, how you complete assignments, how professors are putting syllabuses together. But we as humans will always love and always suffer, and the machines never will, right? So how can we bring that level of vulnerability, empathy, emotional intelligence as leaders into the world? And I think it's like a symphony. We have all these instruments at our disposal, but if you don't have a great conductor, those instruments on their own will never shine the way that they can together. And even if they come together, one might be playing at a different tempo, one might be flat. So you always need a great conductor that can sort of lift up as a leader and see the different tools you have in your toolbox. And technology is just one tool, but the humans control the technology, and the humans still have to exact judgment and nuance around the decision making. And I think us as leaders are now trying to coach human beings that work for us into how to make better decisions, aggregating all of this information. There's so much information and so much data out there that I think it can be confusing. And as leaders, we have to help the people that work for us cut through the noise, find the signal through the noise. And I think so there's two parts, right? There's helping people make decisions better. And I think Brian and I would say we are put in these positions because over time we've been able to exhibit making better decisions than not. It doesn't mean that we haven't failed and made bad decisions, but in the aggregate, we're probably sitting in these seats because we've made better decisions than not. And so we want to help impart the ways in which we've gone about that decision making to the people that work for us. And then number two, I think it is bringing that level of humanness into the interaction, because this industry still, like every industry, still works on relationships. It is the relationship a student has with their professor. It is the relationship we have with our people that then gets translated to the customer. It is the relationship when we're going through something hard to be able to pick up the phone and talk to a CEO or talk to someone at the insurance company and say, I get that technically this claim isn't covered, but here's why I need help, right? A machine is never going to be able to do that the way that a human being can do that.
Rekha mentioned something about building tech to support the insurance industry, right? So my question is, where do you see the biggest gap right now between what the insurance industry needs and what is available right now currently in the market? And how is that shaping where you are hiring, the kind of people that you want, that the insurance space wants for example, I'm a student and studying data analytics, and how exactly are you deciding, oh, we want a data analytics person for this with where the industry is going?
So I'll try to so if I understood your question, it's so you're studying data analytics and you want to understand how best to position yourself for an opportunity. You want to think about what we're looking for from someone that would have a data analytics specialty, and we're looking to fill. So there's two things. One is if we have an opening in our data analytics group, right? We have a group, that all it does is data analytics. So that's easy because you'd probably go online and you'd see that we had posted probably in Indeed for that position. But I think maybe a question behind your question is, how do you maybe find an opportunity if you're majoring in a specific area, but that company, in my case, an MGA doesn't have that option, right?
Yeah.
I would leverage the fundamental skills that you learn in data analytics, right? So you learn how to analyze, right? You learn how to make conclusions from data, and take that information and act upon it. And I would argue that that kind of thinking, which I talk about as critical thinking, can help you apply for any position. I would say this: don't worry about what it is you're doing in your first job. Worry about getting your first job. Um, that's the key, right? Take whatever you can take to get in the door, um, because then you're going to learn. The beautiful thing about your first job is it's just like college. The only difference is you're learning just as much as you did in college. You're just not paying for it. Somebody's paying you, right? So that's what I would stress to you. Don't focus so much on finding a job that, like, has data analytics in it because you were in data analytics. Find a job to get you in the door. Rekha talked about her career. I mean, that's what she did, and look at where it led her to. And so that would be my advice.
Great advice. Well, we don't have time for any more questions, so apologies to the others that were wanting to ask more, but we appreciate you both so much for your time. We've learned so much. This is going to be a great recording to send to students in TMPAA. By the way, I cannot take responsibility or credit for the generosity that TMPAA has shown the students going to Dallas, and also to the annual conference in Scottsdale. So that is all TMPAA. So thank you so much, TMPAA, and thank you, Brian, and thank you, Rekha, for your generosity, your generous time, and your knowledge share today. I've learned a lot, so I'm sure the students have taken a lot from it. Thank you all so much, and we will be sending everyone a recording. And Brian, Rekha, and I will confer to see who had the best question, and we'll send that gift card out to you all. Thank you, team.
Thank you, everyone. Really nice to chat with you today. Rekha,
Nice
great to see you.
Yeah, great to
Thank
see you
you.
too, Brian. And if anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can find me at Rekha Skantharaja on there. And I think Brian, same thing, right?
Yes, feel free to reach out. Absolutely.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
guys. Good
Thank you
luck.
all.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Ciao.